Hey, Picture Perfect people, I hope that your lawns are surviving this summer heat. We're getting close to seeing the end finally in sight. We're definitely on the downhill slope of hot weather for this year. But as we get into August, there is a very unique service that I want to talk to you about that a select number of Picture Perfect clients, usually newer ones, go for each year. And that is a lawn renovation. When people think of a renovation, we usually think about our house or something similar. So if I'm renovating the bathroom or renovating the kitchen, remodeling, it's that tearing something completely apart, starting from scratch and making it new, making it what you want it to be. Lawn renovations are a similar concept. We are killing off the lawn. It's like the atomic bomb drop of turf management. We're just wiping the slate clean so that we can rebuild. This is an aggressive approach, and it's not right for every lawn and it's not right for every homeowner, but it is one of the quickest and most efficient ways of getting everything cleaned out of a lawn that has really gone downhill and being able to start over with a very, very dramatic turnaround. There are several scenarios in which a renovation might be justified for your lawn, but they usually boil down to one common factor, and that's weeds. More specifically, it's weeds that are difficult or even impossible to treat and control. Every year, usually during the spring and summer, I meet with a couple dozen new clients that are going through a situation in which a renovation is what I recommend. And 9 times out of 10, it's because most of the lawn is weeds. It's not fescue. It's either common Bermuda or a lot of nutsedge or kalinga. It's a lot of perennial grassy weeds that look like crabgrass but don't respond to weed control the way that crabgrass does. It's these weird, difficult to treat things, wild violets, wild strawberries, that might respond to some weed control products. Generally, those products won't be included in a typical weed control program because they're more expensive or for weeds that most people don't need addressed. So why make people pay for something that they don't need? That's the good thing that you want a company to do. But as a result, there's this short but significant list of difficult weeds that aren't going to change once they're already existing in the lawn. So when we see a bunch of these problem weeds and we don't see much fescue because the home was previously owned by somebody who didn't care and just let it go, or there's been a situation where the homeowners, for financial reasons or just personal priorities, didn't do much with the lawn, but they want to get something going now. Either way, if we're coming into it and we've got so much bad weed growth, it's going to be a conflict with seeding and it's going to take a lot of time to work that out. So a renovation is recommended because that's going to speed up that process substantially. This weed problem really breaks down to 2 key factors that influence how well your lawn is going to be able to establish fescue. This weed situation really breaks down to 2 key reasons that this is a big problem. First, obviously we've got the issue with it being difficult to treat a lot of these weeds. They don't respond to weed control. They might be impossible to prevent, let alone difficult to treat. So that not only is an issue in terms of getting that coverage, but if you try to do those targeted treatments that clear out those weeds based on what they are, that can be very costly because it's a lot of different specialized products, and it can be very time consuming. Bermuda grass is a really common culprit in terms of this because common Bermuda, which a lot of locals call wiregrass, while Bermuda is a lawn of choice further south than the Richmond area, up here it's a weed. It's going to be dormant and brown for at least half of the year, and most people just don't want that. So while there are selective treatments of herbicides that you can get that clear out Bermuda but don't hurt any existing fescue, these usually have to be applied multiple times a summer for several summers to really clear out that Bermuda. The second problem with these difficult weeds, when they are so thick in a lawn that the majority of it is weeds instead of fescue, when we come through to overseed a new fescue population in the fall, if those weeds are still present, which Bermuda, and a lot of these other weeds are going to be, all of a sudden these are competitors for your fescue seed. So whereas a fescue lawn can support its baby seed coming up and it's not going to be so tall that it's really shading or out competing that, a lot of these aggressive weeds are at a higher risk of choking out your seed. And while you might get some germination, it has a lower risk of longevity or even having the space to grow in. And this makes it a lot harder to establish a lawn for the following year. A lot of the times, if there's a thick population of weeds that we're trying to compete with that weren't cleared out prior to seeding, while we'll get a good result from seeding, it's a lot more likely to have a lot of bare patches the following spring when we do weed control, or it's going to be thin in some spots. It's just not going to look as good. And over time, it will get thicker and thicker, and those weeds will get more under control. The fescue will compete a little bit better as we get the soil right. So you will see progress. It's just more likely to take several years, and some of those weeds might not get completely cleared out. So enter the renovation. That's what the whole point of it is. Instead of having to battle and struggle over the course of several years, a renovation wipes the slate clean. It's killing off everything. The weed control that is built into a standard fertilizer and weed control program that professionals do and that most DIY homeowners do is using selective herbicides, pre and post-emergent weed control that targets specific types of weeds, common broadleaf weeds, crabgrass, stuff like that, without posing any risk to the grass that you're actually wanting to cultivate, in our case, fescue. A lawn renovation is instead using a non-selective herbicide, and this means that it kills everything with which it comes in contact. And that's important to keep in mind because it means that these products are going to be more aggressive and a lot less forgiving. You always should follow label regulations when applying any kind of herbicide, but non-selectives you want to be very careful with because if they accidentally touch a bush or anything like that, it can do a lot of damage. So yes, in this situation, if you have some fescue in the lawn and we do a renovation, it will die. But that's not a bad thing. I'm not going to recommend a renovation for everybody that's got some problem weeds. But if your lawn is at least 50% weeds and the fescue is thin and not in great condition anyway, the benefits definitely outweigh the cost. Let me show you an example of a lawn that we did this for last year. When this client signed up last summer, the lawn was 90% weeds. They had just bought the house, it hadn't been cared for previously, which is fine, but they wanted to get a good lawn established. However, because that summer it was so thick with crabgrass and bent grass and nutsedge and Bermuda that it was going to be very difficult to get good results from seeding that wouldn't be an issue for the following year, we recommended doing a renovation. So we did a couple of fertilizer applications from the point that they signed up to start introducing good nutrients into the soil system. But once August arrived, it was renovation time. In August, we applied a non-selective herbicide to the entire lawn area that we were going to be renovating, and then we waited. Now, there are two important things that I strongly request from any of our clients that we are renovating for in August. First, please notify your neighbors. Because we're going to be treating along your property line, it is extremely beneficial to both your relationship with your neighbors and our reputation as a company that they know why all of a sudden your lawn is going to die and that they're on the same page that that property line is going to be followed to the best of our ability. We always try to give it a few inch buffer, but the second thing that you can do that will be very helpful is to put a flag or some kind of marker at the corners of where your property line is on all of the sides that come into contact with a neighbor. This really helps with not only our public relations, but your reputation in your neighborhood. So it's a really good idea to just take a few minutes to mark that and give your neighbors a call. So once the lawn has been renovated, we've applied the non-selective herbicide. It takes a week or two for all of those weeds and a little bit of grass to die off completely. And that looks like this. The lawn is completely dead. All of those weeds, all of those grassy nonsenses, they've all died off and turned completely brown. It looks weird, right? Nobody wants to see their yard look like this unless it's planned. Once this is done and everything is dead, we always ask our clients to mow that to the ground. We don't want there to be all of this dead material blocking the seed from making contact with the soil surface. So it's a great idea to mow it as low as you can, and even if it's going to be a lot of excessive growth, to bag it and haul it away. Now here's a side benefit to doing a renovation. All of that organic material, even though you're removing some of it by bagging, is still a lot of dead, good nutrients that's going to be breaking down all at once and entering your soil system. That boost of organic material is like a steroid shot of fertilizer. That is some good stuff. And because we're doing it right before aeration and seeding, you are going to see a really strong response in terms of seed development from all of that extra nutrients. It's a side benefit. It's not the only reason that you should do it, but it is part of why a lot of people in the South will burn off their lawn once it goes dormant for the winter to introduce a lot of that natural nutrient into the soil. So if you've made it this far in the video, tell me about your experience. Have you ever renovated your lawn, or do you know anybody that did? Did it go well? Was it kind of a nightmare? In my experience, in the almost 3 years that I've been with Picture Perfect, the renovations that I've seen them do have all been successful. Not only did everything die off the way that it was supposed to, but the lawn that was established afterwards was thick and healthy and really, really pretty. So to me, it's one of my favorite things that you can do to establish a new lawn. By doing the renovation in August, we prevent there from being an excessive window of time in which your lawn is dead. And this keeps there from being too big of a window in which other weeds can grow in, and in which you might get in trouble with your HOA. Usually HOAs know what you're doing. It's always a nice thing to just let them know in advance so that they can track the progress and be all kinds of nosy. But if we leave it dead for months and months, nobody wants that. So we'd renovate in August, aerate and seed around September or October, and by the end of the year, you have a newly established young fescue lawn. Here's what that same lawn that I showed you looked like by the following spring. This is about 6 months after we had overseeded, having renovated it in August, and it is all fescue. It's a really big difference, and it's a little hard to see in pictures, but up close in person, it's like a whole new lawn. It literally is a whole new lawn. It's really cool how quickly a uniform fescue turf can establish itself when it has the room to grow and the nutrient support to be able to do so properly. A lawn renovation is something that homeowners can do themselves with relative ease. It just requires access to a non-selective herbicide, the ability to understand and follow regulations given by the label for use, and the time to apply it uniformly using a hose and sprayer or something similar. I see a lot on the DIY side. I can tell when a lawn has been renovated by a homeowner because there might be little stripes or patches where it was missed. It's an easy mistake to make for somebody who doesn't do it every day. So while I always talk to potential renovators about the option of doing it themselves, I usually recommend just going ahead and letting us do it because the cost isn't very high and it's gonna be a lot more straightforward and a lot more uniform because we have access to equipment and knowledge. That's why we're pros. So like I said before, let me know in the comments below if you've ever done any kind of renovation for your property or know anyone else that has. Or if you haven't, is it something that you would consider doing? Or does it freak you out and is it not something that you would ever even want brought into the conversation? I appreciate all of the feedback that you give me. I've gotten great responses to a lot of late videos, so I really love how engaged so many people have been. If you have any kind of topics that you would love to see us expand on more or explore for the first time, be sure to let me know. I'm always looking for ideas from you guys about what you want to see us talk about. Remember to stay tuned for our live show on August 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, featuring Brian and Kevin Ramsey of Brian Ramsey Designs and the hit TV show Backyard Staycation. I'm really excited to be able to have these amazing landscapers sit down with us, answer your questions, answer my questions. I've got questions. I have a yard that I need to fix up really badly. It's going to be a great topic. It's going to be a great conversation, so I want you guys to join us for that. If you don't think you'll be able to make it on August 8th at 9 o'clock, be sure to comment below with any questions that you would want me to ask Kevin and Brian about the work that they do, and I promise I will make sure that it gets addressed. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and stay picture perfect. We'll be back with you later.